But then there's just this demon in there that's from Leeds. Do I just need to go for a walk and kind of, I don't know what that was. Oh no, oh no. I'm feeling the will to read leaving my body. I have actually just hit 5,000 pages read in October. It's like a filler episode of The Walking Dead. I am a slave to the rush of the rolls. It's the end of the Spookoplathon. I'm so sad. Just before we get into the final Spookoplathon vlog, I would like to say a massive thank you to the sponsor of today's video, which is once again the wonderful Book of the Month. Book of the Month is a US-based book curation service that also ships to Canada. Every month, the editorial team narrow down hundreds of releases to bring you 5 to 7 of the hottest books of the month that you can then pick up at unbeatable prices. The monthly selections cover a wide range of genres, and you also have an extensive list of add-ons that you can add on to your monthly subscription. And if nothing is tickling your fancy that month, if by some miracle you can't find anything you want, you have the option to skip with absolutely no obligations. So if you are just too excited to check out Book of the Month, if you cannot wait to see what my 2 picks for November are, you can head to the link down in my description box, enter the code Becca at checkout and get your very first Book of the Month for just $9.99. But if you want to stick around and see what I've chosen, the one in the blue box is What the River Knows by Isabel Ibanez. What the River Knows is a historical YA fantasy that is set in 19th century Buenos Aires about a girl who lives in this like gorgeous sprawling estate, and the only thing that she ever wishes for in her life is to spend more time with her parents, who are traveling quite a lot. One day she gets the news that her parents have died tragically, and she travels to Cairo along with her parents' assistant, who keeps trying to throw a spanner in the works when she tries to discover like what actually happened to her parents and why they died. It says that this one is The Mummy meets Death on the Nile, and it takes place in a world that is steeped in old world magic. As y'all know, I don't like historical fiction, but I do really like historical fantasy, especially ones like this that seem to be an almost like folkloric fairy tale kind of story with like a little bit of like sprinkling of old world magic. My second pick is of course a romance, and this one is This Spells Love by Kate Robb. This one seems like it's going to be a little bit more emotional than just a typical straight up contemporary romance, as this one is following a woman who, after a particularly harrowing breakup, along with her sister, her aunt and her best friend, she performs a spell to erase her ex from her life. When she wakes up in the morning, she finds out that the spell may have worked a little bit too well, and her best friend has no idea who she is. They actually sealed the spell with a platonic kiss. So to reverse the spell and to get her best friend back, she has to convince her to kiss him to undo the spell, and throughout that she finds out maybe that her feelings for him are a little bit more than platonic after all. So if either of these sound like something you could be interested in, please run, don't walk, to the link down in my description box and enter the code Becca at checkout to get your very first Book of the Month for just $9.99. And of course, as always, a thank you to Book of the Month for always supporting my channel. So we're in the final stretch of the readathon now, and I am very sad about it. We only have 9 days left, and from my perspective as somebody who is participating in this readathon as well as the host, this is the best Spookoplathon that I have ever done, because in previous years there's been a lot more going on. It's been a little bit more low-key this year, and honestly I've loved that. Generally I'm in a better place mentally. I've been able to participate without being stressed, and I've read so much. I'm having such a good time and I don't want it to end. This one is, because there's 9 days left of the readathon, this one is going to be slightly longer than a week. It's going to be the last 9 days of the month, and we're just gonna see how many rolls we can get in. I'm currently working on roll number 10, which if you watched last week's vlog you will know we landed on Michael Myers for the second time. This is the only prompt that we've repeated so far that I've landed on more than once, and for this one I did a poll over on Patreon because I couldn't pick between like a handful of sequels, but the poll came up with The Shadow Cabinet by Juno Dawson, which is the sequel to Her Majesty's Royal Coven. So this one is a contemporary fantasy that is set in West Yorkshire. It's set all over the UK, but all of the characters are from West Yorkshire, and it's following 4 women who were in a coven when they were kids. Now there has been a war in this world between the witches and the warlocks, and in the aftermath of that, these 4 women have kind of gone on separate paths. One of them is the High Priestess of Her Majesty's Royal Coven. One of them still lives in West Yorkshire. She's a vet and she she uses her magic to help her work. One of them doesn't really do magic anymore, and she's just kind of like raising her family and living as a regular everyday human. And the other one moved to London to set up her own coven that is a little bit more inclusive than Her Majesty's Royal Coven. So the plot of this, the catalyst for the plot, is that there is a prophecy that a child is going to be discovered called the Sullied Child that is going to herald the arrival of a demon that will bring about the end of days. And Helena, who is the high priestess of Her Majesty's Royal Coven, thinks that she's found this child, but the child is very dangerous, very magically gifted, and will not communicate. So Helena calls Neve and asks Neve to rehabilitate the child to stop them heralding the end of days. So Neve takes this child on and kind of draws them out of their shell and gets them to like communicate and tries to set them on the right path. The thing that I really liked about the first book is that it's set in the same neck of the woods that I'm from, which is Juno Dawson is from this area as well. Speaking of Juno Dawson, actually, I'm also listening to the new Buffy audio, which is called Slayers. And I started this when I was walking the dog, and it has like loads of the original cast members in. It's got James Marsters, Anthony Head, Amber Benson, Juliette Landau, and Charisma Carpenter. And then there's just this demon in there that's from Leeds. Like, she sounds like Mel B. And I was listening to it and I was like, this is just so bizarre. Like, why is this one demon from Leeds? And they kind of sounded like the actress that is in Heartstopper and also is like the new Doctor's companion. Really can't remember her name, but I love her like in Heartstopper. And so I looked it up. I looked up the list of the cast members to find out who the narrator for this demon was. It's Juno Dawson, which is just so odd, but also like ties into the fact that I'm also reading The Shadow Cabinet right now. But yeah, I love the representation of like the north of England, and the centre of Her Majesty's Royal Coven is Manchester, which is like, I'm from a town that's like 40 minutes outside of Manchester as opposed to like London. And it also dealt with a topic that I feel like as somebody who is like has just hit 30 can kind of relate to, because everybody's changing and evolving as a person as they grow. And this deals with the ties that these four women have from being in a coven and like growing up together as children, and the way that them as people, like their personalities, their lives have all gone in different directions. Like, is the loyalty and the love that you once had for someone enough to tie you to them when they're now on a completely different path to you? Like, how do you resolve somebody that you love not fitting in with like your life and your values when you're in your mid-30s, when you were like sisters when you were 10? Like, how do you navigate that? As well as some other like complex issues to do with like gender, sexuality, race in general, is very well depicted and like discussed in this book, in my opinion, while still having like a compelling fantasy plot line with some killer plot twists. So this one is this one is just over 500 pages, which would be a little bit intimidating, except the chapters are super short, the text is super big, and because it's a contemporary fantasy, I also know it's not going to be like a particularly challenging read. So my aim in these next 9 days is to just read as much as I possibly can. I have read 9 books so far. This one's my 10th, and if you think about it, like 9 days, just over a week, not very long, but also almost a third of a month. And I've read 9 books in the first 2/3 of the month, so maybe I could read another like 4 books in the last third of the month. We'll see, obviously, because I don't know what the roles have in store. We have some tricky prompts coming up in the board where I'm up to. There is highest rated, big book, lowest rated, which obviously would be a drag for a different reason, all lined up like with potential for me to land on with my next roles. So I don't know what the future has in store, but that also helps me to read faster because of the anticipation. And I also I don't know if this is going to happen, and obviously like there's not very much I can do to control it, but I would love to make it around the board one more time. So we'll see how that plays out. In terms of other stuff I have going on this week, I'm doing my first candle restock in the last like 6 months. I made half of it a couple of weeks ago. You guys will have probably seen in the vlog, and I'm aiming to make the second half of that restock today, and then do all of the like labeling and stuff a little bit later in the week, like on Wednesday or Thursday, probably Thursday, for a restock on Friday. So I have some admin to do this morning. I'm also setting up all of the details for the next Trovatrip, which I'm sure you're going to hear about very soon, next week probably, if not this week, and then I'm going to get on with making candles. So I'm excited. I love it when I'm excited for a work day. Actually, it doesn't happen very often, but I'm going to crack on with that because the sooner my list of things are done, the sooner I can get back to reading.
1, 2, 3, 4. shooting stars align. I've been waiting all these seasons for rain to make our lives feel even, and now I've never seen a better sign. 'Cause baby, what you say could make or break my day.
That one kills me. Okay, feet down. Lift the hips up. Reverse tabletop. That will flush out the hips. A little to the right. Chances are it might have kind of swayed off to the left.
Your head upon my shoulder, but I'll be grateful just to hold you. 'Cause I love to spend time with such a dime. My vision's too far to mention, so I'll just pass this.
I have a cold again and I am so over it at this point. Like, this is my 5th cold of the year. Every single one has been different as well, which I don't even understand. Obviously I do understand the science behind it with different like cold and flu strains, but like I literally never, pre-pandemic, I would get 1 sniffle a year, if that, and since the pandemic and COVID times, like I am plagued with colds. And I don't know if it's because when I did get COVID it like destroyed my immune system. I don't know whether the lockdown and not being exposed to any germs and like any colds weakened my immune system because I wasn't out there like enjoying the bacteria, or I don't know whether it's because of the different strains that we've had like post-COVID, but I'm so tired of it. Like, all I want is to get my workout schedule back on track. I just want to work out 6 days a week and like not have to keep postponing my workout schedule because of, I mean, going away, that's my own fault, that's self-inflicted. But then when I'm not away and I'm ready to get back on track, I either have hormone issues or a cold. And I'm literally so over it. So I've edited most of last week's vlog today. I have 1 clip left to edit. I actually thought it was going to take me longer. It's only 2:50 and I thought that it would potentially go into tomorrow as well. So I'm going to be wrapping this up in the next half an hour, which means that I'm actually just going to go get on the couch and nest, because that is where I'm at right now. It's annoying as well because in terms of like any congestion, sneezing, throat issues, my throat's a little sore, but that's about it. But this time I have the weariness, like I feel weary and my muscles feel not happy from being sat at my desk all day, even more than usual. And I keep thinking like, oh, am I just like tired? Do I just need to go for a walk and kind of, I don't know what that was, but you know, like perk myself up. But then I every time I run upstairs to go to the bathroom, like I feel kind of lightheaded, so maybe I should just give it a rest and see what happens. But I'm almost 300 pages into The Shadow Cabinet by Juno Dawson. I'm really enjoying this. It did take me a while to get into it. I think going into this after Gideon was not necessarily a mistake, but it was definitely an adjustment period because the writing style in this is so simplistic compared to Gideon, which was what I wanted when I was reading them side by side. But when a little bit more complexity within the writing, the world, etc. is my preference, I struggle to get into this because of that. I do feel like I did struggle at the beginning of Her Majesty's Royal Coven though, and the further I get into the book, the more that I do enjoy it. I think in general that Juno Dawson's writing isn't my favourite because it is a little bit more on the simplistic side, and there's a lot going on in here. Like, each character is following their own kind of side plot, and it is a 500-page book, so there's plenty of pages in here. But as I said, like, it is quick, the chapters are short, the font is big, so I feel like there would be room in this series for like everything to be just a little bit more fleshed out, a little bit more complex, a little bit more detailed. And all of that being said, like, that's literally the only criticism I really have about this book and this series, because I actually really do enjoy it. I think that this one has been a little bit too heavy potentially on the 90s and like early noughties like pop culture references, but I have been very much enjoying some of them, and I feel like some of them are a little bit more seamless than others have been. Some of them feel like they're there really just for the sake of it. But I am really enjoying the way that this series is becoming a little bit more complex in terms of we have side characters that are being further developed here, and it turns out that like they do have their own agendas and like their own kind of things going on, whereas they were very much just like a supporting cast in book 1. I do have to wonder where this is going though, because if you've read Her Majesty's Royal Coven, you will know that like something pretty big happens at the end, and this kind of goes straight into not even quite the aftermath of that, that, but like it's definitely something that alters the trajectory of the series. And I'm wondering at this point, like, is that final? Is that done? Are we gonna ever revisit that? Obviously I'm speaking kind of in non-spoiler terms, I don't want to spoil anyone, but that's my biggest question in this book. Like, are we going to revisit what happened at the end of book 1, or is this kind of the new normal? So I have like 205 pages left, which honestly isn't very much. I'm not gonna say that I'm gonna finish it tonight because I do have the Buffy watch along with my patrons, so I probably won't. But if it's not finished today, then I think it's definitely going to be finished tomorrow, which is very exciting. But I am really just enjoying the reading process of that right now. And also, like, I know I've just said that it was an adjustment after reading Gideon because of the very different writing styles, but I do feel like that having a more simple writing style is really suiting me right now. But then on the flip side of that, because of the weather, because of the time of year it is, I'm in a big fantasy mood, which is something that I feel we could see. I'm thinking of doing, if you guys watch my unboxing, on my August unboxing, somebody left a comment saying I should do a month of just subscription books. So I'm thinking about doing that in November. I actually, right now, I'm 90% sure I'm going to at least attempt it. You guys know I don't like to commit myself because then I start to get cagey and feel weird and anxious. But yeah, that's going to impact how many like sequels and things I could read next month because I'll be focusing on subscription books. But we'll see how we go because I'm adding like an element of chaos into that as well if I do in the end choose to pursue that. Speaking of sequels, I do have an Amazon parcel here. You all know what it is. Do ya? Did I say yesterday? Or did I say at the end of last week's vlog, which I also filmed yesterday? I could not tell you, but I did order on Amazon Harrow the Ninth by Tamsin Muir because I love Gideon so much, and I just want to check. I chose not to get the Illumicrate editions because it's not that deep, like they're still going to match because covers aren't changed, but I just wanted to check that yeah, they do match. The Tor symbol on them is different, but I'm absolutely fine with that. I would be bothered if they didn't match, if Illumicrate had altered the cover at all. This was one of the first Illumicrate books I got, so it's not like it's literally just the same cover with a signed tipping page.
These 5 words I cannot call you mine. 'Cause baby, what you say can make or break my day. Baby, what you say make or break my day. Yeah, baby, what you say make or break my day.
So there is a petition like
Baby, what you say make or break my day.
I plan out most of my content, most of my sprint weeks in advance. I normally do end up doing it because I don't. I'm already I need to go make dinner, so I can't discuss right now, but I have just this second finished the Shadow Cabinet. What the fuck is that ending? Oh my god, like I remember feeling like this after Her Majesty's Royal Coven as well, but the cliffhangers that Juno Dawson ends these books on, I need book 3 like right now. I'm literally, there was one part, like one reveal in those last 2 chapters that I was literally shocked. So my bad, I fucked up, I'll admit it. I forgot that the joiner was coming at 5:45 to give us a quote on, he came with his brother who's a plasterer, to give us a quote on the replastering of our bedroom, and I'm also having like coving and a ceiling rose putting up, as well as I think the skirting needs replacing. So because he came close to 6 p.m, I only started making dinner after that, and now I have sprint starting in like 6 minutes and I don't have a book. So I'm gonna have to postpone my thoughts on the Shadow Cabinet and bring those to you a little bit later, and we're gonna have to fast forward to roll number 11 because I'm sprinting in 6 minutes and I don't have a current read. So the Shadow Cabinet fulfilled the Michael Myers prompt. Roll number 11 is a is a 6. I've landed on go. Oh my god. Right, okay, so randomize the TBR. Right, the way that we do this is I go to my entire own TBR. This is just the easiest way to do it. I go to my entire own TBR video that I post in December every year. So this is the one from, that is, I just clicked on my own channel. This is the one from 10 months ago. and we see how many books are in this. This could be game over for me in this readathon depending on what we land on, but the number of like the total number of books I had that were unread at that time was 530. So now I go to a random number generator. I'm scared. This has worked out well for me in the past. Whether it works out well today is a different matter. So 530, I'll generate it a few times just to like get it going. And then the one we're doing for the roll, 358. Numbers didn't make any sense in my brain then. So 358. So that I think is gonna be like in this area of the room somewhere or on my romance shelves upstairs. So let's see. Oh no, oh no. It might be from my unhaul cart. Okay, that's 359. The Shock of the Fall by Nathan Filer. Buzz by David Nichols. Percy Jackson and the Lightning Thief by Rick Riordan. Sisters of the Winterwood by Raina Rossner. Fable by Adrian Young. Oh, do I still have that? Let's see. Oh, I think I do. I should have unhauled it. I really thought that I'd saved that one because Adrian Young was supposed to be at Rare last year, so I thought I'd saved it. But it's not on the cart. I'll have a quick look upstairs. I don't think it's there either. 1 minute. I do indeed still have Fable by Adrian Young. I must have moved it upstairs when I saved it. So this was on my self-destructing books for 2022. And when I did the recap video, I said I'm out of breath from running upstairs. I still got a cold. Whew. I said when I revisited that video that I was saving this, but just until Rare, in case I ended up really liking it, and then I could take it to get signed. It's already signed because I'm pretty sure it's a Fairy Loot edition. But obviously, like, Adrian Young ended up not going to Rare, and I completely forgot that I had a caveat that I was only saving this until Rare. So it was still on the bookshelf upstairs with all of my tiny hardbacks. So this one is a YA fantasy. It is about the daughter of a powerful trader whose father leaves her abandoned on a legendary island filled with thieves, and she has a goal of getting off the island to find her father and demand her rightful place in his crew. And to do this, she enlists the help of a young trader named Wes to get her off the island and across the sea. So I'm guessing that this has some romance in it because I was very confused when Adrian Young said that she was going to Rare, because in my mind she writes YA fantasy mainly, even though she has just like released an adult book last year. Apparently they're also romantic. So I gotta go because I'm late. I put a message in the sprints to say that I was gonna be late, but I really need to go and get these sprints rolling. So I'll be back later to talk about the shadow cabinet. So I feel like my voice is giving in a little bit because I've been on sprints, but I'm back to talk about The Shadow Cabinet by Juno Dawson, which I really enjoyed, and I ended up giving 4 stars, which is the same as I gave Her Majesty's Royal Coven book 1. And I pretty much feel about this one exactly the same as I felt about book 1. I really enjoyed it. I really liked the plot. It took me a little while to get into it, but once I am into it, I find it super absorbing. I think that for me personally, the connection to locations that I know, locations that I live near or have lived near or have been to in my youth, like the characters have been there in their youth, really helps me to get immersed in this series. And I can definitely understand, like, I know that quite a few US readers have struggled a little bit with this because the dialect and the Britishness of it is so strong. Usually that is something that puts me off a book because I find that reading things that are very British is very cringe to me as somebody who is British, and I did feel like that a little bit. I feel like that's why some of those pop culture references weren't really hitting for me, but overall I actually like that I'm so familiar with the locations, and I do really like the plot. As I mentioned earlier, they could maybe slow it down, go into more detail, but I think that's kind of what the difference is between the type of fantasy that this is and like an epic fantasy. If they slowed it down, if Juno Dawson went into more detail of every character and what they were doing and what was going on, it would stray more into epic fantasy, which I would love, but that's just generally not what this book is. I feel like you can tell with the delivery of this series that Juno Dawson does lean very contemporary with her writing. I was a little bit nervous going into book 1 in this series because of that, because I know that Juno Dawson has written so much contemporary and also so much YA, but I actually think that because of the like very British setting, the way that this is a contemporary fantasy very rooted in the real world, it actually works really well. And throwing it back to Buffy, because as we know, Juno Dawson narrates a character in the Slayers audio, it does have some Buffy elements. Like there were bits especially towards towards the end of this where I could draw parallels between one of the main characters and also Willow, and I feel like having that little bit of knowledge, like I can see the kind of Buffy-esque, like Charmed-esque influence on this series, which are shows that I grew up with, shows that I love, and I really liked that as well. The cliffhanger at the end, as always, was phenomenal, and I'm very, very excited to get into book 3 in this series. I think it's a trilogy. I don't know that for sure. That is purely my assumption. I'm used to things being trilogies, even though that's not as common anymore as it used to be, but I'm very excited for book 3. I actually hope what happens with this is the same as what happened with book 1, where like I forgot some of the stuff that happens right at the end, because with the action scenes I do find them very cinematic, and I feel like this would really translate well into a TV show. So yeah, I'm really glad that I read that one. I've read a lot of really good books this month and I'm really happy about that. But on the flip side of that, I've also read some books that I haven't loved as much this month, and sadly Fable is about to fall into that category. Now, I am actually still doing sprints. We're only in the beginning of the second sprint, though they have been very long sprints. I've rolled 50 twice. So I'm 50 pages into this, and I think it's going to be a DNF because this is written in first person present, which I'm finding very jarring. I'm also finding that the writing in here isn't very engaging. I've read 50 pages of it, but I could tell you pretty much nothing because I'm literally glazing over as I'm reading this. And based on the setup so far, like I could finish this book probably, like if I did 5 more sprints at this length, I would finish this book, and it maybe even less, and it wouldn't take me too long. It's a very fast read, but I just know that this book is not going to get any better for me than it is right now, and it's not even the book's fault. The setup, the first 50 pages that I've read, they feel like a quite standard setup to a YA plot, and I'm not saying that there isn't an audience for that kind of story, just like a fun kind of typical YA story. There definitely is. It's just that audience is no longer me as somebody who has read so many of these stories. I just don't enjoy them anymore, so I'm going to be DNFing this one. With that being said, we are very, very swiftly moving on to roll number 12. So roll 11 was a colossal fail. Roll number 12 is 7. Okay, Chance, I haven't redone these in quite a few rolls, so let's see what we get. Oh, this is a mood read. This is good. So once again, we have a very recently hauled one. This is one of the like autumnal reads that I put in that like I'm in the mood for because of the season. And look at me reading my 2 most recent book of the month books, because the book that we picked is You Again by Kate Goldbeck. I really wanted to try and get this into the season because, as you can see, it has a very autumnal cover. I don't know whether the entire thing takes place in autumn or whether it's just like a design choice, but this one, I'm not sure whether you call it a romance or a contemporary. It is kind of chunky. It is like 400 pages, 413. But this one is about 2 people who hate each other because they're sleeping with the same woman. And I think a few years later, yeah, years after that, they have both suffered through breakups and they end up meeting up again. They become friends, and then I think potentially after that they become lovers. So it's giving kind of One Day by David Nichols vibes, which is a book that I really love. And I've seen quite a few people reading this recently, assumedly because it is a book of the month book, but I haven't, I don't think, seen anyone's actual thoughts on it. So fingers crossed, after a DNF, I actually like this one. Am I in the mood for a contemporary right now, or like a romance? Not particularly. I am very much in like a fantasy mood, but who knows, because Fable was a fantasy and I definitely wasn't feeling that, so maybe this will be our next hit. I think as well it's 400 pages, but I think I could potentially get one more roll in before the end of the month. Hopefully. We'll see. Hey, I am filming today, which isn't ideal. I always intended to film tomorrow, but I have a laser hair appointment, like removal appointment at 10:45, and I believe that you can't wear makeup for 24 to 48 hours after that. So we've had to move filming to today. I still have a cold. I'm doing all right though. Like I feel much better than I did, except the more I talk, the more likely I am to cough. So my bottle of water is my best friend, and to be fair, I could probably do with making a cup of tea to like help with the scratchiness. But I just wanted to come and sit down and talk to you guys about my next Trovatrip, which is going to be launching this coming Sunday. For this one, it's going to be a Greek island reading retreat, so it is a different vibe to the ones that I've done in the past, but I'm so excited for this one because something that I've discovered with Trovatrip, especially when I went on Ashley's Croatia trip, is that I have no anxiety and no guilt. Like normally when I go on holiday, I feel like, am I really making the most of the time that I'm spending here? And the thing that I love about these pre-planned itineraries is that you have a list of activities, so I don't feel that guilt and anxiety, because like, yes, I'm going doing this thing, I'm exploring this ruin, I'm experiencing the culture and touring this city, and then I can do whatever I want in my downtime and I don't feel guilty about it. So this one has more of a pared back, relaxed itinerary. The idea is that there's like one main activity every day, and then around that I'm going to be looking at beaches to sit and read on, and I have added like a bunch of optional and like flexible reading sessions on there that like if you want to explore instead you can go do so, or we can go find somewhere to like read in the sun. We're going to be going to Crete, that is the island, and we're going to be going to 3 different locations on Crete. I will put a list of the activities here, but there's like a waterfall visit, tour of one of the cities or like towns that we're going to. There is like a visit to the place where the Minotaur myth was born, and a bunch of other stuff. There's also 2 optional activities, which are a monastery visit with wine tasting and a cruise to, I think it says like it's an islet cruise to one of, I think I'm pretty sure it's one of the pink sand beaches, which is really exciting because like the concept of a pink sand beach just pretty much blows my mind. The dates for this is going to be, I think it's the 6th, yeah, the 6th of October 2024 to the 12th of October. It's a 7-day trip, and one of the things that I love about Trovatrip from my experience of being on 2 of them is that all of your transportation and stuff between activities is all sorted. In this one you have 6 breakfasts, so you have like a hotel breakfast every day. There's also 2 lunches and 2 dinners. You have a guide there that like organizes, they're in control of logistics, so they can like make restaurant reservations and stuff, recommend places to eat and stuff like that, which as a foodie I really love, and I love taking that advice from like locals. I did ask one of my patrons that lives on a Greek island what the weather's going to be like at this time to make sure that it is still ample weather for swimming, because that is the thing that I'm most excited about, and she assured me that it's still warm at the beginning of October. It's like mid to high 20s, which will be not so hot that it's uncomfortable doing the activities on the itinerary, but still plenty warm enough to like read on a beach or go swimming. If you guys are interested at all in joining me on this, I will put the link in the description box, because by the time this video goes up the trip will have launched. There are 10 discounted early bird spots available, and they are $2,675, and then after those 10 spots are filled it will go up to $2,825. To secure your spot you would need to put down a 25% deposit, and then the rest is due 2 months before the trip starts, which will be the beginning of August. I know that not everybody is going to be able to take me up on this opportunity. I know that these trips are a little bit more expensive. In my experience of being on them, I feel like the thing that I love the most about them is that all of the logistics are handled, and as somebody with anxiety, that just makes me feel so much better. Like going somewhere, having my activities pre-planned and all of the ways to get there, like all of the transportation and stuff sorted, is just like a big weight off my shoulders. The way that Trovatrip works as well is that they do pay me to go on their trips. I pay for my flights, I pay for my expenses, but I do get the trip for free, and the money that I'm paid is to contribute to my expenses, so towards my flights, towards my spending money. In reality for me, like for Italy I broke even. For Thailand, like the flights cost me more money than I've made, so it's not like I'm making bank on them, but I do want you guys to know like there is a monetary contribution from Trovatrip for me to use their platform to host these trips, and they essentially provide a platform where kind of like this thing is possible. I do understand of course that it is a privilege to be able to offer these trips, to go on them, and for you guys to be able to take me up on them. They're expensive, it's not something that everybody can go on, so I just wanted to thank you guys for your support when I'm hosting these trips. I am, as usual, not going to be talking about them constantly because I know FOMO is real. Like I get FOMO. If you guys are interested, if you want to join me on this Greek island reading retreat, oh, I'm so excited, it's going to be so chill. The link is in my description box and will be in my description box for the foreseeable future. And now I'm going to get back to filming random little clips for random little vlogs. So cute.
drops on the floor. Blood is freezing in my lips.
Good morning, guys. I'm feeling much better than I did earlier in the week. I do still have some cold symptoms, like I'm sneezing a little bit and I do have a cough, but the like tiredness and the weakness that I was really struggling with early in the week seems to have passed, which is great because those symptoms bother me the most. But I did mean to check in with you guys yesterday actually, but the day ended up kind of getting away from me. I started off by having my plans rearranged. My laser hair removal appointment was rescheduled to next Thursday, and I did get slam dunk tickets because we had a discount from going last year. I listened to 1989, Taylor's version, and I think it's my least favorite Taylor's version so far. None of the vault tracks really spoke to me, and I don't feel like the core tracks were really different enough that they wowed me like they have with like some of the previous Taylor's versions. And then I just ended up doing like really knuckling down and focusing on lots of random little work tasks, which I feel like I haven't done in a while. I feel like I've been very scattered and focused on like, oh my god, when is this over? But yeah, I really just honed in on some stuff and then spent the evening hanging out with Curtis playing Divinity, and I watched Scream. So tonight Curtis is actually going to a Halloween party. I'm really excited actually because I'm going to put my pajamas on and either binge The Fall of House Usher or maybe watch Scream 2. I haven't decided yet, but I'm going to have like a spooky TV movie night. But until then, I am going to be doing public sprints on my channel with Gavin. So they actually start pretty soon. I think we're talking like 40 minutes now. And yeah, 40 minutes. I need to do a little bit of tidying just because I'm going to be sat in this room until at least like 4 p.m. and I cannot settle, like I cannot sit in this room and read a book if I know there's things that need to be done around me. So I need, like, it's not dirty or anything, I need to tidy over my desk. There's a couple of bits on the floor behind me. I need to put the blankets and stuff back over the couch and hoover, because hoovering makes such a difference to how clean a room feels. Then I can settle down and get some reading done. I'm feeling the will to read leaving my body as we approach the end of the month, which I'm sad about because like I wanted to carry that through into November, but I did also always know that that wasn't going to be super realistic for me because I tend to have like a really good month and then a not great month, so November's probably not going to be the best. But I am really enjoying You Again. I'm 190 exactly pages into it, and it is a pretty easy read. It's a quickie read. It's a pretty quick read, but like I said, like I'm just not really in the mood to read right now, which is worrying because I do have sprints all day today and potentially all day tomorrow as well with my patrons. But it's given like, it does have One Day vibes by David Nichols. It's also reminding me a little bit of The Hating Game with the kind of banter going on, and also with the way that these two people, because it's like hate to friends to lovers, the friends element of it is reminding me a little bit of like everything, and I think that's because we have the time jump section. So it starts off in 2014 and then it jumps 3 years to 2017, 2 to 2019, and then 3 to 2022, and I'm guessing that that's pretty much where it stays unless it does like one final 1 year time jump to bring it up to like present day. But it's one of my favorite like kind of romance pairings, which is when the guy seems like an asshole but he's not actually really all that bad, and the girl is like super highly strung and super quirky. So he is like a hopeless romantic. He's really like set in his ideas of love. He's looking for a girlfriend right at the beginning of this book, and he's trying to like get Ari's friend to like move their relationship into an actual relationship where he would be her boyfriend, and she's essentially mocking him for it. She's having a casual thing with her roommate, and she is very much like a friends with benefits kind of gal that doesn't believe in love. They very much clash on that, and they're teasing each other. He's like, why do you live your life like this? And she's like, you're such a fucking square. Then they meet accidentally at like a couple of functions throughout the years up until they are both coming off a like many year relationship where they're the injured parties in the relationships. They're the ones that have been broken up with, and they're very much in the depressy stage after a breakup, and so they just kind of start to wallow together, and that blossoms into a friendship. Now the reason why it's the romantic pairing that I like, aside from just their personality types, is that it's very clear from chapter 1 that there's hints of attraction there on behalf of the main character. Like he's angry, he doesn't like her, but he's like, in this light though she looks kind of good, and I love that dynamic. So I am having a good time with that. I just really have no desire to read anything right now. I'm looking at my jigsaw that I got from the Lake District, which is looking super appealing, but for that I would have to go sit in the kitchen, and if I'm setting up sprints in here then I'm not going to do that. I am hoping that I can finish You Again by the end of today if I can knuckle down and read in these sprints, which I'm not sure if I'm going to be able to at this point, and then I'll be able to roll again today for a new book that potentially will take me till the end of the month.
Just October things. He never talks about his past, they say he's coy. I could just shrug it off and being paranoid.
What do you want, Bubs?
Oh, because he doesn't have a
Ah?
spouse. But oddly
Sit.
no one ever
Look at me.
says
There you go.
always wears a smile with his style. They all believe in God. It's truly a delight, Mr. Right. Oh, close the windows, lock the door. It's late at night and I hear footsteps on the floor. Blood is freezing in my veins.
I just made myself this chai, which Brie is super hyped about. Oh, it's the chocolate. It's the chocolate that she wants. And I've got myself a few of the chocolates that I brought back from Florence. What are you doing? What are you doing, girl? You've got some spooky atmospheric lighting going on over here, aka pumpkins. And can you not? Hey, I need to put this down so I can rescue this chocolate. But this is part of the little pick and mix bag that I got from Venchi. I think this one is the same as the bar that I got. It's just like one piece. And then I have this one, which is blood orange and dark chocolate. And this one, which is like a lint ball. I think that this one it has like a hazelnut inside it. Can you stop? I've lost one. Amazing. Now that I've got my snacks and I'm cozy, I'm gonna watch episode 2 of the Fall of House Usher, which is because I was like with watching Midnight Mass last, which I didn't love. I didn't know what the vibe of this was going to be. It feels very Burton-esque so far, and it's kind of spooky, which I'm definitely here for. Midnight Mass I just don't love because it was like very heavily religious. Also, update on this, I don't even know if it was last week's vlog at this point. In an October vlog I said that I got some chai from Bird and Blend, toffee chai, but I wasn't sure how I was going to feel about it because it's rooibos and I normally like black chai. It's good, would recommend. Not sure if I prefer it over my chocolate chip chai that I got from T2 ages ago, but it's definitely good enough for me to be excited about this right now.
The clocks went back last night in the middle of the night, which means in theory I got an extra hour in bed, but in reality Brie woke me up at 6:30, so I got up to let her out, got back in bed and tried to sleep for 30 minutes, then gave up and came downstairs. So from the scene behind me, the level of light, you would think that it was twilight, but this is what 9:45 would have looked like yesterday morning. This is what yesterday's 10 a.m. would have looked like. Now, because the clocks have changed, it's 8:45, but like, damn, are we getting those dark days already? It feels like the transition from summer to autumn, like the transition from like it being light all the time to dark all the time, is like over real quick, but the periods of darkness and the periods of lightness like seem to last forever. But I feel like it's contributing to my level of motivation. Like I'm not having a cozy weekend because it's Halloween weekend and that's the way I'm framing it in my mind, but realistically I think it's the level of light that's making me, and the weather that's making me really not want to do anything aside from slouch around the house, read books and watch the Fall of House Usher, which after episode 3 I am still very much enjoying it. And I think I'm going to do Patreon sprints. I was going to start them at 10, but it's 8:47 now, and if I want to watch an episode of the Fall of House Usher, I think that I would maybe do them at 11, but we will see. Anyway, I'm here because I finished You Again by Kate Goldbeck. I didn't finish it in sprints yesterday. I didn't finish it after sprints last night. I actually wrapped it up this morning. I only had the last 40 pages left, I think, but because I wanted to spend last night watching the Fall of the House of Usher, I think is the full title. But in my opinion, you can take out the and the of at the end and just be the Fall of House Usher, and it's like it's the same thing. But yeah, I was focusing on that, so I only went to bed at like 12:30 and I was too tired to read too much then. But I really enjoyed this one. I gave it 4 stars. I really like the chemistry and the banter in between the main characters. This does not take place, because I know when I picked it up I was unsure because of how autumnal the cover is. This takes place across, I think, the end of the book where we start getting time jumps again. They're in months, so I would say that it ends in 2023. I would say the end of 2023, so it is 9 years, I think, in total that it spans, and all different times throughout the year. The one recurring time I would say is like Christmas, New Year time, and there is like some autumn in here, but it's not like a fully autumnal book like the cover makes you believe it is. But it is a very good romance. The standout for me really truly was just the banter between Josh and Ari. It is one of my favorite romantic pairings, but I also liked the amount of queer characters in here, and I liked the representation of bisexual characters in relationships with both men and women. I liked the messy drama of the characters in here and how they're kind of, I think they're in like their late 20s, early 30s. Definitely I would say early 30s by the end of this book, but living in New York City, kind of like a sitcom kind of set of characters where they're all just trying to figure everything out and getting into epic messes along the way. And there was some mental health representation in here, like the aftermath of like what it does to your self-confidence when you're going through things like breakups. So definitely would recommend it. I gave it 4 stars. I did think it was potentially going to be a 5, but I didn't like the reconciliation portion of it. Just, I thought that, because you know normally like a reconciliation in a romance after your 3rd act breakup is normally like a big dramatic grand gesture, and I feel like the way it actually played out wasn't all that dramatic and grand like the lead up to it was, and then the actual thing itself, I felt like it fell flat after that. That is probably like completely subjective personal preference. For me it just didn't land, but the actual relationship between them throughout this book, like I loved. So good news, I have actually just hit 5,000 pages read in October. This is the 2nd time ever in my entire life that I have hit 5,000 pages, and the first time was August. So me being me, I now want to beat my best month of the year, seeing as it was only 2 months ago. So in August I read 5,328 pages. My previous best month ever before this was like 4,600 or 4,700, so I beat it by quite a bit, and I did that across 12 books. So I'm currently on 11 books read for October, and I'm on 5,003 pages. We have 3 days left of the month. We are about to go into roll 13, which, I mean, if I do 13 books or 13 rolls, because I did an after book for October, the spooky month, where Friday the 13th has fallen within October, I feel like this is going to be perfect. But I'm hoping that I get a little bit like it's a prompt that I can actually choose, because I want a book that is at least, and this shouldn't be difficult, I want a book that is over 325 pages, which means potentially I might struggle to actually have it finished by the end of the month, but it's going to take me over my August page count and make October my best reading month ever. I think I will have choice based with what's coming up on the board. I don't think there's anything super out there coming up, but we all know famous last words, so let's see what roll number 13 has in store. So I think that my dream of getting around the board one more time is going to die here, but if I could land on anything right now, I kind of want to land on the oranges because they're the only colour group I haven't landed on the entire month. But aside from that, like, I have no preference. I don't want to land on these necessarily because of the specific prompts. It is literally just because I haven't landed on them all. So let's see what roll number 13 is going to be. An 8. Okay. 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. And it is a Taylor Swift space. It is Are We Out of the Woods Yet? So I did have one book on my October TBR that would have fit for this prompt, but because it's the last book I'm going to be reading this month, I kind of wanted to go with a horror. My options for this prompt though, with the horror that I have, weren't the ones that, like, it's not the horrors that I'm most excited to get to. And this is actually going to be my second chance for this author, because I'm going to be reading The Girl in Red by Christina Henry. I previously read Alice by this author. I read both books 1 and 2. I was so excited for them, and I didn't like them very much, but I don't think that I like Alice in Wonderland. I think I like the aesthetic of Tim Burton's Alice in Wonderland, but I think as a reader, like, there's just far too much whimsy in Alice in Wonderland and retellings of Alice for me to really enjoy them. So interesting actually, because the book on my TBR that I would have picked if I'd have gone the TBR route is an Alice in Wonderland like inspired book, but this one is a sci-fi horror, so not the horror you would expect from something associated with the woods. It's a Little Red Riding Hood retelling, so definitely is going to be wood centric, but this one is a sci-fi horror. It's post-apocalyptic, and it is set after something that has happened called the Crisis, which has sent humanity living in quarantine camps where like death, illness, etc. just like kind of run rampant, and the main character doesn't have a choice but to go in the woods where there are lots of horrible things, including general creatures, but also including terrible men. So yeah, we'll see if I enjoy this one more with it not being an Alice in Wonderland retelling. I know that Cody is a big fan of Christina Henry, and mine and Cody's taste does match up, especially with fantasy. I'm not sure whether I necessarily say we're a perfect match outside of fantasy, but I guess this will give me an indication whether we are. So I'm going to schedule my sprint so that is actually done. I'm going to make myself a coffee and I'm going to watch an episode of The Fall of House Usher before I get into sprints, which I think I'm only going to go until like mid-afternoon today, but we'll see. Curtis is still not home and he's probably still not awake, if I'm being honest. So, and I think football's on at 3, so to be fair, I'm not going to be spending any time with him at all today. I might as well just read.
You say make or break my day. Baby, what you say make or break my day.
Good morning, my guys. Today I am going to be labeling all of the candles and starting to get the orders out from Friday's restock. You guys pretty much sold me out, and thank you so much, because I was a little bit worried coming back after a 6-month hiatus. I was like, what if people don't care? What if people have other candles that they like more than mine now? What if they don't want mine anymore? But this restock was a massive success, so thank you so much. And I'm actually really, like, last Monday I'm really happy to be working because I've just missed making candles. It's so like methodical and therapeutic and like productive while not being stressful. But well, most of the time. Sometimes it is a little bit stressful, which is why I stopped doing it quite so frequently. But yeah, I'm going to put on, because you guys know I watch stuff while I do this kind of thing, I'm gonna put on something Halloween related. I think I might watch the I Know What You Did Last Summer TV show on Amazon Prime, because you know I love me a teen drama. It's probably not going to be the best thing I've ever seen, but my attention is going to be split anyway, so that doesn't really matter. I did finish The Fall of House Usher last night, so I watched that pretty much in 24 hours and it was so good. I've seen all of the Mike Flanagan shows now, and I think that The Fall of the House of Usher is either my favorite or my second favorite after Hill House, and then it would probably go Bly Manor, the Midnight Club, and the Midnight Mass. I didn't love Midnight Mass very much and the Midnight Club was very slow, but oh my god, I loved it so much. I actually want to rewatch it with Curtis because it's not super scary. It has a bunch of jump scares in it, but it's not, I would say, as like, it's not creeping me out after I finished it. Like, I don't feel like I'm going to be followed around by any kind of like demons or ghosts or anything like I do. Like, watching things like Hill House makes me scared of walking around my house. The things that are haunting the family, like the Usher family, are very specific to the Usher family, so I'm not scared that there's going to be demons crawling out of my walls or anything, if you know what I mean. I also managed to get to page 200 in Girl in Red, and I'm not loving it, but I am enjoying it. When I read the Alice duology, or I think there's more books in that series now, but there was only 2 when I read them, I thought that it was kind of like very whimsical, very almost juvenile, and I kind of, in the end, I was like, okay, maybe this is because it's an Alice in Wonderland retelling and those things encapture the nature of Alice in Wonderland as a story. But I started this one and it does still have that very juvenile writing style, and for me with horror, atmosphere is key. Like, that is what I'm looking for, and Christina Henry's writing style is very, very simple, so it doesn't build that like foreboding, creepy, disturbing atmosphere that I'm looking for in horror. Just generally, I do prefer more of a ornate, descriptive writing style. In the 2 types of Christina Henry books that I've read as well, she does have this like recurring theme of men are bad, like man is bad, that's the thing that you should fear the most. And like, honestly, she ain't wrong if we're being honest here. At the same time, it's not a theme that I'm mainly looking to explore in horror. Like if I'm personally going into horror, I want gothic stories, haunted houses, maybe some demons, ghosts in general, more supernatural kind of things. And while I think the virus in here is written very well, it's the kind of human aspect of it that I'm not as interested in. It feels like, do you know when you watch The Walking Dead and you're in season 7, so we're past The Walking Dead's prime here, okay, and then you'll randomly get one filler episode that is backstory on a side character that you literally don't give a shit about. I'm thinking the episode with Enid where she eats the turtle and literally nobody cared. And did anybody ever care about Enid? I didn't, I can tell you that. It's like that episode. It's like an off-brand episode. It's like a filler episode of The Walking Dead, focusing on one character. I am enjoying it a little bit more now. I'm like in the middle portion of it than I was at the beginning. I've like adjusted to the writing style, but I'm anticipating if it continues to be decent, if I continue to enjoy it, it's going to come in at a 3. Otherwise, probably a 2. But I have the Buffy watch along tonight, so I'm not sure if I will finish that book today. But if not, I'm definitely going to finish it in sprints tomorrow because I'm going to be doing sprints for most of the day as it is the final day of the Spookoplathon. I will say if you are particularly bothered reading pandemic type things after like since COVID, I would maybe recommend skipping this one because it does have a virus that everybody calls the cough, and it's actually the way that the main character is very much into like risk assessment and she's very doom and gloom. The way that she, like when the first symptoms of this pandemic in this book started, she predicted that the government would behave exactly the way they behaved when COVID started, which is a little bit eerie because this book was published in 2019. I really like sci-fi horror, so I like anything that can be rooted in science, and I think we've proved with COVID that like flu-like pandemics where coughing is the main symptom can turn into this big thing, and this book is like just taking it a little bit further where the virus like continues to evolve until other things happen. So if you do like reading books like that, I would say that this one is a good one for that element. But if you really want to avoid anything to do with pandemics, cold and flu viruses, and like the terrible things that can happen as consequences, maybe give this one a miss. But that is where I'm currently at with my reading. I'm gonna see how long it takes me. It'll probably take me an hour, maybe a little bit longer to label, probably a little bit longer to label the rest of these candles, because I've only printed the labels that I need. How many do I have? 91. I'm going to be here, I think, for at least an hour and a half, 2 hours, which should be enough time for me to get at least a couple of episodes of the way through this show to see if it's any good.
Can make or break my day. Baby, what you say can make or break my day.
Like now the lives that they have, I'm not used to that. Like I'm working to get where I want to be. I've always been the people that I love and love you. And
Happy Halloween, guys! Today marks the final day of the Spookoplathon, and I'm starting sprints in 30 minutes on my channel that are going to run for the majority of the day so that everyone can squeeze in some last minute pages on the last day. The problem with that is that I don't have any last minute pages to squeeze in because this morning I finished Girl in Red by Christina Henry. So I gave this one 3 stars. Once I got past the first 100 pages or so, I ended up really like enjoying the reading process of this. I think that Christina Henry did a really good job of building the backdrop for this story. Now, I know obviously when this book was published I wouldn't have had an idea, but she drew some very interesting parallels between how like she thought that the government and the world would handle a pandemic that very much mirror how the real world handled the pandemic, which was super interesting. And I love me a sci-fi horror, as I said, so I did enjoy that we did have this virus based as like the threat in here. That being said, there were multiple things going on, not just this virus, and also multiple threats. I still stand by that this feels like a filler episode of The Walking Dead, and while I sank into this story and I enjoyed it, I liked the backdrop, I think she did a good job of like world building and making this realistic, believable. This book feels like it ended halfway. Like it feels like she got to a point in the story and was like, I'm done now, let's skip to the end. And I hated that. Like I was like, what was the point? Like why? I just don't understand, because this had like an extra at least 100 pages of story. I was at page 320 in this and I was like,
I don't understand how this book is going to end, because I feel like I am solidly in the middle. Like, I don't even feel like the main conflict ever happened. It feels like an episode of The Walking Dead where we're going to pick up this plot next episode, but this is a standalone. So yeah, I think 2 stars for the plot, 3 stars in terms of I actually enjoyed it while I was reading it, and I enjoyed the foundations of this book. I do not know why it ended the way that it did, because I feel like this felt like a plot story, like we're gonna follow this character as she accomplishes this task, and then the plot just didn't plot. It didn't plot. I also feel like there were many opportunities for this to be more sinister. There were many situations the main character ended up in where I felt like there was very big potential for things to go horribly wrong, but somehow they worked out okay. And I feel like at least one of those instances should have played out into a bad situation for the character. I also spoke earlier about how I find Christina Henry's writing to be quite juvenile, and the main character in here to me read like she was 16, and multiple times throughout this, like, I'd have a moment where I'm like, oh yeah, no, like, she's actually 20, she's actually an adult, because she reads like a teenager, or like not even like an older teenager, like 18, 19, like a young to middle teenager for the majority of this book. So like I said, this was a second chance for me for Christina Henry. I don't know at the minute what I'm gonna do about the other Christina Henry book that I have, because while I enjoyed this one, it had things that I definitely didn't like. So am I gonna read Lost Boy? I feel at this point probably I'm gonna keep Lost Boy, and at some point in the future I will read it, but I don't think I'm going to be going out of my way to pick up any Christina Henry book in the future, because I just don't think that she really works for me. So with me finishing this book, I can officially say now that October has been my best reading month of all time. I've currently beat August by 38 pages, and I am shook because August was an outlying month for me. It was unusual. Like, that was a rare occurrence that was never going to be repeated, and here we are in October where I have repeated and I have exceeded. So I'm feeling real proud of myself, and I didn't know what to do, because as I said, I have 7 hours of sprints ahead of me, and I have just finished my last book. It's the last day of the readathon, so I kind of want to make the most of that. It's also Halloween. I kind of want to make the most of that, but the sensible thing to do would be to just pick up a book off my November TBR and make a start on that, especially with me doing, if you watch my TBR, especially with me doing the subscription box challenge that I'm doing throughout November. I feel like making a head start on my TBR would be the sensible option, but I am a slave to the rush of the rolls. I've thought about what's coming ahead on the board, and there are some spaces that I can fit books from my November TBR into. So we're gonna gamble. We're gonna hope that the rolls are in my favor, with the intention of picking a book to start but not necessarily finish in October. So we're looking for a prompt that I can either add a book from my November TBR or a short read that I could potentially get done today, but I don't plan on reading after sprints tonight. I want to watch like a spooky film because it's Halloween, so let's cross our fingers and pray that the rolls are ever in my favor. So let's take a moment to evaluate the board as it stands. The scope of my rolls are from here to here. There are a handful of prompts that I really want to land on. I can work with Black Cat. I can work with Broken Mirrors, although this wouldn't be ideal. What a Ghostly Scene would be a really good one. Toffee Apple and Candy Corn, very vague open prompts. I can also work with those. Prompts that would be okay to land on, or potentially okay, depending on what happens. Community Shelf, because I don't know what's going to come up. Chance, there are a lot of books, like the majority of the chance cards are books from my TBR, so that could work. Dice Roll Roulette, obviously depends on the roll, but I have a range of books on my TBR, so potentially that could work. Crows and Ravens would be a struggle. Mary Shelley would be quite inconvenient. Daphne du Maurier, I could fit something short and spooky into. That is how it stands. Pray for me. I feel my adrenaline's going. Wish me luck, and let's see what roll number 14 is. A 5. Oh. That one is Dice Roll Roulette. Right, so I have my rolling guide. This roll will determine how long the book that I'm gonna be picking up is gonna be. I'm scared. Okay, let's go. 8.
That's not too bad, I don't think. Okay, so an 8 is a book between 375 and 424 pages. So let's see what we've got. So this is my November TBR, and I'm straight up just hoping that one of these is between 375 and 824 pages. I have rearranged them into like the priority order, like the most important ones are at the top and the least important are at the bottom. And we're just gonna go through one by one, and whichever one, if any of them fits the page perimeters, that will be the one that I read. So we can count this one out straight away. So the 600 pages. Wildlands by Stacey Marie Brown could fit 406. Yep, 406. Okay, so we're going with Wildlands by Stacey Marie Brown. My first read of the month was actually Savage Lands, which is book 1 in this series. And once again, I'm going to be getting a head start on my Patreon pick because this one is a very quick read with me reading it all day in sprints today. I imagine that I'm going to actually get through a decent chunk of this, so I should finish this pretty quickly at the beginning of November. If you guys don't know what this is my current Patreon book club series. We read fantasy romance series in their entirety, and this one is the second book in the Savage Lands series. It's a post-apocalyptic kind of fantasy romance that is set in the city of Budapest. About 20 years before the start of this series, the veil between the Fae and the humans fell, which created this war. There has been a resolution to the war, and the city has now been split in two. So you have the humans on one side and the Fae on the other. Our main character is the daughter of a general, and the general died shortly after the Fae Wars, so she is currently the ward of the king. And from her position of privilege, she likes to, essentially she's doing it for an adrenaline rush, but it also like inadvertently helps out the lower classes because she steals drugs from the trains that transport them through the city, and she puts the drugs onto the black market so that the people who need them, like the lower classes that need the drugs, the medicine, can benefit from them and also benefit from the money instead of it lying in the pockets of the elite. So one day when she's doing this, she gets caught at the checkpoint between the human and the Fae lands and thrown into a maximum security prison where she meets Warwick Farkas, who is a legend of war, but for the Fae side. And she starts to realize that maybe the human side isn't the good side to be on after all. These are not the best written books that I've ever read, but they are very, very addictive. They're very easy to read. And this is a reread for me. I've already read books 1 and 2, but this was chosen for my Patreon book club, and I really wanted to get back into the series because it wasn't my fault, the reason why I didn't continue this series. So I'm excited to have the opportunity, and I'm really excited to move on to books 3 through 6 after I've reread this one. I do have something to say actually before I get on. The other day I said that You Again by Kit Goldbeck was a mix of One Day by David Nichols, The Hating Game, with a touch of Everything Times 3. Everything Times 3 is not a book. It's Tomorrow Times 3, and I realized this yesterday and I was like, wow, Becca, you said that like with your whole chest with such conviction. So I just wanted to set the record straight here that I know that it's not Everything Times 3. That is not a book. So I just wrapped up the final sprints of the Spookoplathon, so I'm now also going to be wrapping up the final vlog of the Spookoplathon as well. I did make it 150 pages into Wildlands by Stacey Marie Brown. I'm enjoying it enough so far. It's pretty much exactly like Savage Lands, not the best written thing that I've ever read, but somehow like addictive, compelling, and a really quick, easy read. It's not the most interesting at the beginning. I think that's true of both of the books, the first 2 books in this series, which I've already read, but I don't know, there's just something about this series, like when I'm reading it, there's elements of it and I'm like, I know this isn't good, but I can't stop reading. I mean, it's decent, it's okay, but there are just like, I feel like it could be executed a little bit better. But you cannot deny that these books are like super addictive. So this one I'm going to be carrying through into November. If you guys watch my TBR, you will know that I am doing a subscription box challenge in November. So the only books that I can read are ones that are either on my TBR that I have to read or subscription box books. The ones that are on my TBR I do plan on reading very much in the background, but this will be my first TBR book that I read in November as I like run that challenge alongside. It's the end of the Spookoplathon. I'm so sad. This has been, as I said, my best reading month ever. October. Definitely the best Spookoplathon for me and like my participation in it. To wrap up the week, I guess to start off with, the first book that I finished this week, this is the wrap up for this week, which I mean, I did DNF one and I haven't finished one, but that's a stack. So the first one, do I even remember the prompts anymore? This one I think was Michael Myers, which was to read a sequel. It was The Shadow Cabinet, loved it, gave it 4 stars. I then landed on Go and sadly Go selected Fable by Adrian Young. I read 50 pages of this, decided it wasn't for me, and I decided to DNF. I then landed on Chance, and my chance pick was You Again by Kate Goldbeck. Considering I haven't been in the mood for romance recently at all, I did really enjoy this one, and I also gave it 4 stars. I then landed on Are We Out of the Woods Yet, which is actually the only Taylor Swift train station I think that I've landed on throughout this entire game, which is a bit sad. But I picked Girl in Red by Christina Henry, which is an adult horror. This one I gave 3 stars to. I enjoyed the reading experience, but I feel like it kind of just ended very abruptly. And then we decided to do one final roll. I danced with the dice of death and I was victorious, and I landed on Dice Roll Roulette, where I had to pick a book that was between 375 and 424 pages, and I started Wildlands by Stacey Marie Brown. This is wild to me because I swear I haven't been in a reading mood. I don't know how I've read these. To read this much, I normally have to actually put effort into it, and I feel like I'm almost accidentally finishing books. I don't know where all of the time and the energy that it takes to read a book, like I don't know where it's coming from, especially over the last few days, over this last week. I know that I've been wanting to read less and less, but has still been reading more and more. I wanted to show you everything I've read for this readathon. I'm going to take Fable out because, to be honest, I don't know if I can lift this stack, so taking Fable out is definitely doing me a solid. This isn't all of it before you think it is. I'm actually worried that my printer is going to collapse. Oh my god, right, okay. I don't know if I can hold this, guys. I'm gonna have to stand up for it. Can I fit them all in? Can I hold them next to me now that I have them in my hands? These are all of the books. Are they all in frame? These are all of the books that I read in October. Don't ask me how. Don't ask me how, because I have no idea. This is obscene. This is ridiculous. Like, that's 12.5 books. Not small either. Not small at all. One of them was Wheel of Time, and I know that August was my best reading month of all time before this, but I only count pages from books that I finished in that month. So I've read half of Wildlands in this month, but all of the pages will be counted for November. None of them will be counted for October. So in August, I'd already read half of the Wheel of Time book that contributed towards August's page count. So I actually read 400 pages less than was in the total stats, like within the actual month. I started my first book of October on the 1st of October. I read all of this in October, and I could not tell you how. Aside from that, I've had less plans, but there was a whole weekend I was away with my friends, and reading wasn't my priority. I guess we can say that this Spookoplathon has been a success. I really hope that you guys who participated have enjoyed the readathon. I've really enjoyed having it spooky themed. This is the first time I've ever really been able to lean into spooky season and read so many autumnal things, or like horrors or thrillers, because I haven't had such an intensive TBR. Thank you to you guys who have been watching the content that I've made for this readathon. I hope you've enjoyed that as well. There is a tracking form for everybody to track their reads. I haven't put mine in yet, I'll be honest, but at the minute we have 2,890 books logged, and we are on 976,993 pages, and I know there's a bunch of people who haven't even logged their books yet, so I'm going to leave this open till Friday and we'll see kind of what we land on. But the most common book read at the minute is the XX, which has been read 20 times, and our MVP, the person who's read the most, is Courtney, who was also the MVP for 2022, and Courtney has read 70 books for the readathon. The most landed on space is Chance with 192, which makes sense because it's a repeatable space throughout the board. But I think I looked earlier, and the actual space that isn't a repeated one that's been landed on the most is Mood Read. So there's just a few little stats I thought I would throw in there. I can't tell you exactly what nature next week's vlog's going to be because I've put it on chaos mode. I have a list of prompts for the subscription subscription challenge, and at the beginning of every vlog I'm going to be pulling one out, so I have no idea what the theme of next week's vlog is going to be. But if you want to hold me accountable for all of the subscription boxes I get, you want to see me actually read the books, then stay tuned. I'll make as many of those vlogs as I can make in November. But aside from that, guys, thank you for participating. Thank you for watching this vlog. I know it's hella long. I do hope you have enjoyed this vlog if you've made it this far. If you have, please don't forget to like if you liked it, subscribe if you wanna, and I'll see you guys next week. Bye.
Oh, you bite your friend like chocolate. You say you'll go where nobody knows, with guns hidden under our petticoats. We're never gonna quit it, no, we're never gonna quit it, no.